Hello, good people of Ableton land. I am back with a new device. So Celestine, as it's called, is best described as a real-time granular processor. It hosts a rolling buffer that is constantly listening to what you play, replenishing itself, and then spitting out grains based on what you feed it. It doesn't store audio for later. It's all about the fleeting moments, the moment happening right now, the present. Celestine actually has 8 various modes, and each one handles the grains differently. Also, each mode has kind of a sub-mode within it, not synced, just regular grains, and then a synced mode, which both give very different results, and we'll get into this later as well. And then rounding out this device, Celestine offers a hearty effects selection featuring wavefolding distortion, a bit crusher, a dreamy reverb, the magic effects panel seen in some of my other devices. And yeah, there's a lot going on here. I think Celestine lends itself really nicely to melodics, vocals, keys, guitars, and the like. But I've also had some nice results with percussive material. It can be used both as an insert effect on a track, setting a nice balance between dry and wet, or as a send with the device set to fully wet, sending bits and pieces of various tracks to it. And I put a lot of time into this one. In fact, you may recall seeing me release an earlier version of this device a few months ago. I released it for about a day, and then I experienced my absolute worst nightmare as a developer. A customer reached out, and he was having issues with the device. And while I only sold this out to about 15 people before I pulled it, and while most of the other customers were saying, no, it's fine, I couldn't sleep at night. I was feeling guilty and like I was tricking people. And I want to earn your trust as a developer. I appreciate you all so much. So anyways, I decided to pull it from the shops. I spent a long time trying to figure out a better way to accomplish what I was trying to do. For a while I was stuck. It's a tricky thing because I have this buffer and I have, you can imagine, a record head that's writing to the buffer constantly, and then also a playhead that's reading from that same buffer constantly. And if the playhead and the record head meet, you kind of end up with some glitches and some weirdness. So for quite a while I was stuck, but one day I was sitting outside late at night in my yard, and I had an epiphany. I rebuilt the whole engine from there. I tested and I tested and tested until I was confident that there were no more audio issues. I've been working with a few beta testers who have also been testing on different machines. They also are saying, yep, it's good to go. I feel very confident. I also added a bunch of new modes. I made everything better. And yeah, this whole process took me about 4 months. So I'm asking $15 for this one. I feel I could maybe ask for more, but I'm trying to be reasonable and treat this lovely community of musicians with respect. I know that your money is hard earned, and I know that everyone is struggling in some way, and money is tight. So that's that. That your support will not only go towards the continued development of this device, past devices, and new devices, but also, more importantly, it goes towards my family. This is how I put food on the table for myself, my wife, and our tractor-obsessed toddler. I feel very lucky to be here in this position, working from home, creating things to spark joy and inspiration for musicians. It's very cool. It feels like my true calling. So anyways, I'm rambling already, and this is probably going to be my longest walkthrough video to date because there is a ton to cover. So let's begin. Let's get started, shall we? Usually I start from the left and work right when walking through these devices, but for this one, I'm going to start more in the middle with the heart of the device, the mode selector. And then we'll kind of bounce around from there, and we will eventually cover everything. So, as soon as you press play in an Ableton project, Celestine is listening. And there are 8 modes. The main mode, grain, is what you would expect from a granular device. It slices up your audio into tiny grains. It plays back a whole bunch of them all at once, a cloud of grains, if you will. So let's stick with this main grain mode for now, and we'll walk through some of the other controls, and then we'll come back to talk about how each of these other modes works later. Chapter is down in the description of this video if you do wish to jump around. So grain mode is engaged. We can then do normal granular things like adjust the size, the density, the spray, the pitch. I opted for a perfect fifths pitch shift here because it's just, well, it's inspired by Chase Bliss pedals, and I just find it musical. There's also a sync button here. Where is it here? With sync off, the grains are just being played constantly with no real rhythm. But then when we turn on the sync button, suddenly our grains are snapping to time divisions. Let's turn up the wide here. So we're on an 8th note grid, but I think it's more obvious with something like a 16th grid. So every 16th note, if there is a bit of audio where the playhead is in the buffer, it's going to spit it out to the beat. And then you can change the size here, which you'll see has changed from milliseconds to also time divisions. And also you'll find that this sync button works a bit differently with each of the 8 modes, which we'll cover later on. So as I mentioned earlier, Celestine is always listening. Internally there's a 1-bar buffer that is constantly being recorded to and played back from. And if you want to temporarily turn off the recording of the buffer, let's play something here. If you like what's in there right now, you can press this live button and it'll stop recording. But also know that next time you start playback, it's going to record over whatever you have. The device is more of a real-time processor, and it's not a place to store audio. It's always listening. That's the whole idea. We'll turn live back on here. So below this button, we have the playhead control, which is a nice way of scrubbing through the buffer. Let's turn down spray first, so we can scrub through like this. And since the buffer is exactly 1 bar long, that means that the exact halfway point of the buffer is going to be on the 3 beat. If this were the 1, this were the 2, etc. So if you're recording rhythmic things in, it might be nice to be able to move the playhead to a specific transient on a downbeat. So we can click this grid button below, and now the playhead has just 8 positions, each corresponding to an 8th note within a bar. Turn this off for now. Also, maybe you don't want to manually scrub through your buffer. Let's change up the sound here. Yeah, maybe you don't want to manually scrub through your buffer, and if that's the case, we can use this move dial here. Right now it's set to manual, but we can turn it up. And now we're scrubbing very slowly through the buffer, or very quick. And then we can reverse this as well, of course. And then over here, we just got a visual representation of the playhead as well. I'll turn off move. You can also drag this with your mouse. And you can also see here the influence that the spray control has over the playhead. So as we drag up spray, you'll see the actual distance within the buffer where we will now be able to grab grains from. And when it's turned off, we're only going to be getting grains from exactly where the playhead is. Small detail, you may notice that when you move this playhead, it's not moving this, even though this playhead moves this. This may seem confusing to you, but this is a way of not having your undo history filled by Mac's devices, which they famously do if one parameter is controlling another. So yeah, just keeps things a little cleaner. Below that, we've just got a visual, just a UI, just a representation of a bunch of parameters. You can see that things change as we change things, just a little eye candy. And then finally on the left, we just got an input gain control in case you have like a particularly hot sample going in, and then just the dry wet knob. So we've covered the time panel, and we covered some of the mode panel, and let's just play around a bit with the actual grain controls a bit. Although this section will be similar to most granular devices. So let's try this one. So again, spray controls the distance from the playhead where grains are fetched from. Let's bring the playhead back here. And then density controls how many grains are playing at once. So we can go real sparse. Let's turn off the wet so we can hear the effect. Or really dense. And then size, of course, controls the size of each grain. Pitch is self-explanatory, and as I said before, it doesn't give you every semitone. I've gone with a perfect fifths system, which just feels a little more musical to me. If you are missing control over every semitone, let me know. I can add this in a future update. This is kind of a personal preference. Let's turn up the density. Let's try another sample. So jitter introduces a little pitch warbling to the grains. Nothing too extreme, but it can be nice for making big cloudy drones. Spread is a more extreme pitch shifting. Each grain can play back at any pitch. Stereo controls the stereo placement of the grains. When turned down, everything is just straight down the center, or sticking with the original stereo field of the audio going in. And then as you turn it up, the more everything's kind of just moving all around you. I like to leave it all the way up. Reverse controls the chance that a grain will be played back in reverse. The higher it's turned, the higher the chance. And then smooth just rolls off some of the top end. Grains can sometimes get a little abrasive or clicky, so this is just a quick way to smooth that out a bit. So with that covered, let's play around with the various modes that we're offering here. And before we start, I'll also say that these modes are all going to behave a bit differently depending on various other settings, like the grain settings over here and the sync setting here. So there's a ton of possibilities, and it really is like a tinkerer's delight, this device. So Mosaic mode, it builds harmonic clouds by pitching grains into chordal intervals. Like it'll play a couple of grains at the bass pitch, then a couple at +7 semitones, then +12, etc. And each grain kind of has a soft bloom, if you will, and a bit of a lo-fi quality in this mode. So first, let's just turn down to all the way dry so we can hear the bass loop. And this is what we're starting with. And then we'll turn down the density, and we'll turn up the Mosaic effect. And then you'll see that where the spray knob was, we now have a color knob, and this gives us one of 4 options for pitch shifts. So the first is basically moving in perfect fifths. The second is more of a major key. The third is minor. And the fourth is more discordant. And maybe let's turn off the wet so we can really hear those. And then you can play with the jitter if you want for a little bit of extra warble. Or if you really want to make things crazy, you can turn up the spread. I find that this mode can be great for pads and stuff, especially if you want to add in a bunch of dreamy reverb. And then with each of these modes, you can kind of think of the sync button as a sub mode, because now it's going to adjust those pitch shift clusters to fall on note divisions like this. Turn it off. The next mode is glide. So glide makes individual grains glide up in pitch, kind of like a micro portamento inside the cloud of grains. So now we have a glide knob here in place of spray, and this controls the depth of the glide. The size knob also plays a large role here. So a larger size, the glide's going to take much longer to reach its final pitch, whereas a shorter size, it's going to be quick. Let's turn up the wet. We've also got a shape control now down here, which adjusts the curve of the glide. I like this effect with longer grains, personally. Let's actually try it with something very different, like some drums. Just like a texture generating machine. And then, of course, again, with the sub mode of sync, let's give it a listen where things get more percussive. Oh, this is cool. I'm very into this. Cool. Let's go back to some melodic stuff, and we'll go to the next mode, which is Reverie. So Reverie forces everything into reverse. All the grains are played in reverse with a subtle wow flutter, kind of evoking tape-like drift, dreamy smears. It also gets a bit lo-fi, as you can hear. I like this one with a longer size for stretch tape echoes, and then you can adjust the spray and this new wow dial for wobble depth. I will turn up the wet for a sec here. I think this one is nice with some verb too. And of course this one, reverse, won't have any effect because everything is reversed. And then again, with sync turned on, it's kind of a sub mode. That's cool. Next up is Bloom. The idea here is that every triggered grain spawns a secondary ghost grain that fades in slightly later at lower volumes and subtly detuned. So the idea is some sort of like a harmonic halos blooming around the original audio. Lush, smeared, almost slightly reverb-like, but granular. For this one, you want to increase the density and size for more of these overlapping halos. And maybe play with jitter a bit. Turn up the wet for a sec. And then again, we'll turn on the sync mode to test that sub mode. Next mode is Tide. So here, grains collectively swell and recede in playback rate, driven by a global LFO. And the idea was kind of to create like an organic ocean-like tidal push and pull of texture for everything to sound like it's subtly breathing, if you will. And the key parameter here, in my opinion, is size. A long size can make it very ambient. Whereas a short size can make it almost like a tremolo-like effect. And then again, we'll turn on sync mode to test that sub mode. Bring in some dry. Cool. Next mode is stars. This is kind of inspired by, well, stars, constellations. If you imagine that the grains in your buffer are placed on fixed star positions, like on a constellation map, and we ignore where the playhead and the right head of the buffer are. Let's turn this down. It creates this kind of repeatable, recognizable patterns of sound fragments that cycle every bar. And if they're melodic, if you're using pitched material, or rhythmic, if you're using percussive stuff. For this mode, the spray knob becomes a pattern knob, and we can choose between 4 patterns: forward, reverse, pendulum, back and forth, and random. So you kind of get these interesting loops within your grains. Let's go back to forward. Turn on dry wet. And then we'll turn on sync mode again to test that sub mode. Lastly is orbit. In this mode, grains orbit around the right head at sort of like a circular, pseudo-orbital circle, spiraling over time. It was created to try to give like a rotating planetary feel where audio seems to revolve around the present moment. And I like this one with slow tempos, lower densities. The spray knob becomes width, which increases the orbit. Let's turn this up. And we've also got a slop control, which adds imperfections and a lo-fi quality. So this one kind of ignores the playhead and creates its own loop, if you will, which can kind of play in tandem with your dry audio. I don't know, I think it's interesting. And again, let's try the sub mode with the sync mode. So those are the modes, and I appreciate that you're still here with me. This is a long video. We've covered most of it now, but we've still got some effects to talk about. And just before we dive in there, I'll just reiterate that this is a deep and complex device, definitely the most complex that I've created. It offers a lot of options, maybe almost too many, and many of the modes/features will work differently depending on how other parameters are set. For example, once you find a mode that sounds good to you, going back and adjusting the playhead controls can drastically change things, because suddenly if the playhead's moving and you've got spray turned up or down, you're going to be plucking grains from other places. And then if you go back and turn on sync or adjust the size or density, you just got a lot of sonic territory to explore. So take your time, tinker, play around, And I hope it brings you some inspiration, truly. Okay, effects. If you've used other devices of mine, you'll recognize this magic panel. It's just like another quick way to add interest or variety to a sound. It hosts 7 artisanal effect algorithms, and each is controlled by the magic dial down below. We'll play around a bit here. It's just something, I mean, sometimes they get a bit wacky. It's just kind of an extra tool in your toolbox, basically. If you have something you like and you just want to change the dimension of it slightly, I recommend you play around with the magic panel. Then we've got dirt. Sometimes it's nice to be able to quickly saturate some grains without adding in a new plugin. So we've got a nice wave folding distortion, which brings out a lot of nice rich harmonics. And we've got a bit crusher, which goes from subtle to quite crispy. And then we got a mix control down here in case we don't want to completely obliterate the material. And then lastly, we've got a reverb section. Let's just change these settings around. Again, it's just nice to be able to quickly add in some space to a sound without grabbing another plugin. So we've got a very simple Hall reverb algorithm here, which just has a decay control and a dry wet control. And the decay can get quite long and feel almost frozen when turned up. I think we've made it through the end here of this walkthrough video. If you're still with me, I'm so impressed. But I feel like it's important to take our time and jump through all the features, and there's probably still things I missed. And as always, I look forward to hearing your thoughts. Please let me know how you're enjoying it. If there's features you imagine that we could throw on in another update, I'm always open to my customers' feedback, and really just want to make stuff that's useful and fun and inspiring for you, the musicians, the producers. So cool. That is Celestine. It is available. Links down below to my 2 shops. I truly appreciate you for listening this far, watching this far in the video. I thank you for sticking with me. It's been about a year now we've been doing this, and it's very cool that you're here. So yeah, thanks for your time. I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are. More from me soon, and peace.